Hey everyone, it's Dave here.
And it's Tom, and today we're looking at Resident Evil 5 released on PS4 and Xbox One. We're comparing it to the PC version, the original PC version that is, and also the original last-gen version as represented by Xbox 360. So first off, let's see PC versus PS4 in action. We've got a field of view change, don't we?
Yeah, if you recall Resident Evil 6, Capcom did the same thing. They've basically zoomed out the camera in order to give us a better view of the characters, which kind of more closely resembles the original Resident Evil games, I guess.
Okay, so it's a bit more drawn out so you can see more around you.
Yes.
I prefer it this way, to be honest. It is a bit hard to tell exactly with a side-by-side view, but it's clear you can see more in the screen. But for purists, is there a way to go back to the original style?
So yeah, on PS4 and Xbox One you can select between the two different viewpoints, whereas on PC you're just locked into however the game originally looked.
Interesting. So we're moving on now to the visual differences, where there are any, and textures are flagged up in our notes here as one of the changes.
That's right, yeah. For the most part the artwork is generally identical between all three platforms, but curiously on PS4 and Xbox One there are some scenes where we see characters in cutscenes sporting a lower resolution texture map and also missing specular components.
This is one of the first differences you pointed out when you were showing me your comparison footage. This shot of Chris Redfield, his kind of suit, his armour, especially on the shoulder pads, there appears to be some mapping differences there.
Yeah, indeed. What's interesting though is that I only noticed it in two cutscenes with Chris Redfield. In other sort of cinematics, we see Sheva appearing identical across all three formats.
So presumably it's just a one-off glitch reserved for those two scenes, but otherwise it does look much the same, although we do have better shadows as well.
Yeah, a few effects have been tweaked on PS4 and Xbox One, so shadows are rendered at slightly higher resolution, and on top of that we've also got a change in the gamma and lighting model. So in scenes where we get sort of bright highlights and lens flare, we can actually see slightly more detail on PS4 and Xbox One, though it does mean that some of the bloom effects are reduced compared to the original version.
Yeah, I see what you mean. This shot with the tree and the light kind of streaming through it, it seems to have become less saturated with light. Whether you prefer it or not is, I suppose, down to personal preference, but it shows there's been a kind of extensive reworking behind the scenes of certain graphical elements like this.
Yeah, and on top of that we've got upgraded object motion blur, so they're using more samples this time, so you get less banding artifacts in motion. Although there doesn't seem to be any change with camera blur, that seems to be exactly the same across all three formats.
Very cool. So on PS4, what else do we have? It's a native 1080p as well, isn't it?
Yeah, that's right, it's native 1080p and they're using a post-process anti-aliasing solution. There isn't too much of a difference in image quality between the remastered version of the game and the PC original. I think on PC here we're using 8x multi-sampling, which gives us a more refined image, but you know, it doesn't look too bad on consoles.
Very good. So let us move on to the comparison between consoles. Specifically, let's look at PS4 and Xbox One to start. And to be honest, the story is pretty straightforward here, isn't it? We've got two console versions with practically identical visuals.
Indeed, like we saw in Resident Evil 6, both PS4 and Xbox One are identical, so same rares, same effects, same artwork. There really isn't any difference between them in terms of core graphical quality. It's really just the performance that separates them.
So let me get this straight, the resolution's exactly the same?
Yep.
Okay, so that's pretty good going. It is also running with the same level of textures and shadows, would you say?
Yep, everything's identical. It's literally a like-for-like match in all areas.
It does make for a pretty straightforward comparison then. I mean, we're looking at two identical images left and right. So let's push on to a more divisive comparison. This is the Xbox 360 original version compared to PS4. And obviously it's going to be a huge divide in visual quality.
Yeah, exactly. The big difference obviously is rendering native 1080p on the PS4 and indeed Xbox One, whereas on 360 we're looking at 720p upscaled. and that makes a lot of difference. You know, the core artwork is essentially the same, but with the increase in pixel count we actually see more details across distant surfaces, and we just get a bit more of a refined presentation overall.
Cool, good stuff. Thanks for that, Dave. If you did enjoy this video and found it useful for deciding which version to buy, please do give us a like or subscribe below, and until next time, see you soon.